The small shuttle drifted through the upper atmosphere of Kalor, its engines failing, its controls unresponsive. Inside sat Elias Grant, a human explorer assigned to scout the planet for possible future contact. He had not expected his mission to turn into a desperate struggle for survival, but space had its own plans. Sparks flew across the control panels. Alarms blared in sharp tones and smoke filled the cabin. Elias fought to keep the shuttle steady, but he knew it was useless. Gravity pulled him down toward the alien surface. His hands tightened on the controls as he whispered to himself, "Come on, stay together just a little longer." The ship shook violently as it broke through the atmosphere. Heat blazed outside and metal groaned under the pressure. Elias braced himself for the inevitable crash. Moments later, the shuttle hit the ground with a deafening impact. Everything went black. When Elias opened his eyes, he was lying in dirt, surrounded by towering trees with silver leaves. His shuttle was half buried in the earth, smoke still rising from it. Pain spread across his body, but he was alive. He struggled to his feet, clutching his side, and looked around at the strange world. The air was heavy but breathable. The sky glowed with two suns, one large and gold, the other smaller and pale blue. Elias knew he could not survive long on his own. His emergency supplies were limited and the environment was unknown. As he gathered what he could from the wreck, he heard something moving in the distance. Shapes appeared between the trees. Tall, slender beings with shimmering skin and insect-like eyes emerged from the shadows. They carried long spears that hummed with energy. Their movements were graceful yet cautious. Elias froze. These must be the natives of Kalor. He raised his hand slowly, showing he carried no weapon. The aliens surrounded him, their large black eyes studying his every move. They spoke in clicking tones mixed with deep hums, a language Elias could not understand. One of them, taller than the rest, stepped forward. Unlike the others, she wore a woven mantle across her shoulders, marked with symbols that seemed to hold meaning. Her eyes lingered on Elias, and for a moment he thought he saw curiosity rather than hostility. Elias pointed at himself. "Elias," he said clearly, tapping his chest. The tall alien tilted her head. She made a soft sound, then touched her own chest. "Serenia." That was the first time Elias heard her name. The aliens brought him to their colony, a place unlike anything he had seen before. Their structures rose from the ground as if grown rather than built, made of crystal and bone-like material. Light glowed within them, soft and natural. The colony bustled with activity. Children ran across open bridges, workers carried woven baskets, and guards patrolled the outer edges. Elias felt every eye on him as he was escorted inside. Whispers followed him. Some looked at him with wonder, others with suspicion. He was clearly the first human they had ever seen. Serenia walked beside him, speaking to the others in her language, her voice steady and commanding. Elias guessed she held some authority here. When they reached the central hall, decorated with patterns of gold dust, the group stopped. An elder sat upon a raised seat, his body marked with age and wisdom. His eyes glowed faintly as if holding inner light. The Kalorians spoke among themselves, debating what to do with the stranger. Elias could not understand the words, but he understood the tone. Some wanted him gone, others wanted to study him. Then Serenia stepped forward. She raised her hand, speaking firmly. All turned their eyes to her. The elder listened, then nodded slowly. Finally, the elder spoke a single word, pointing at Elias. "Stay." Elias understood that much. Life in the colony was not easy for him at first. The Kalorians gave him a small room carved into crystal, and Serenia was assigned to watch over him. She tried to teach him simple words using gestures and objects. Elias listened carefully, repeating the sounds until she nodded in approval. He soon learned that Kalorians valued contribution. If he wanted to remain, he had to work. Elias offered his skills. He repaired broken tools using parts from his shuttle, taught them simple human techniques, and even helped with farming tasks. His adaptability impressed them, though some remained skeptical. Serenia often watched him with quiet curiosity. Unlike others, she did not treat him as a threat or tool. She asked questions through gestures, pointing to the stars, to his chest, to the broken shuttle. Elias tried his best to explain, drawing shapes in the dirt or using broken metal pieces to demonstrate. Slowly, they began to understand each other. Yet Elias noticed something else. As days passed, Serenia seemed restless. Her usually calm eyes grew brighter, her steps quicker. He saw her pause often, touching the glowing symbols on her mantle. Whispers followed her through the colony, and sometimes the people bowed slightly as she passed. Something important was happening, though Elias did not know what. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned purple, Serenia visited Elias. She carried a tray of strange fruits that glowed faintly in the dark. She placed them before him and sat across the room. "Elias," she said softly, pointing at him. He nodded, smiling. "Elias," she touched her chest. "Serenia." Then she spoke a string of words he did not understand, but her tone was serious. Elias leaned forward, trying to follow. She pointed to the stars, then to herself, then to Elias. She repeated the words, slower this time. Elias frowned. "I don't understand," she sighed, frustration flickering in her eyes. For a long moment they sat in silence. Then she simply said, "Soon." Elias did not know what she meant, but he felt the weight of it. The colony soon showed signs of tension. Groups gathered at night, whispering in corners. The elders met more often, their voices sharp. Elias could feel the change, though no one explained it to him. He found his answer one morning when a group of young Kaelorians ran past him, laughing, and shouted a word he had never heard before. "Mathar!" They pointed at Serenia as she walked through the square. Elias looked at her, confused. Serenia's face was calm, but he noticed her hands tightened around her mantle. Later he asked her about the word, repeating it carefully. She stiffened, then looked away. Finally, she met his eyes and said in halting human words, "Season. Mine." The meaning struck him slowly. Her people had a cycle, something natural, something tied to their way of life. And now Serenia's time had begun. Elias could see the changes more clearly now. Serenia was no longer just a diplomat in training or his quiet teacher. She was at the center of her people's attention. Everywhere she went, eyes followed. Elders whispered. Warriors stood taller. The air itself seemed to hum with tension. Yet there were no Kaelorian males near her age in the colony. Most had gone with hunting parties or trade groups. Elias realized with growing unease what that meant. Serenia's season had begun, and he was the only outsider male present. That night, as he sat alone in his crystal room, Elias thought about what this meant. He had come to Kaelor by accident, a survivor of a crash. He had no plans to interfere with their culture, no right to involve himself in their traditions. And yet somehow his presence had already changed things. He remembered Serenia's word from earlier. Soon. He did not know what was coming. But he knew one thing for certain. His time as a quiet observer was ending. The colony of Kaelor was alive with quiet tension. Each day Elias felt the mood shift around him. The people who had once looked at him with curiosity now seemed cautious, sometimes even watchful. Their whispers carried a word he had heard before. Mathar. He knew now what it meant. Serenia's season had begun. Elias tried not to think too much about it, but it was impossible to ignore. Wherever he walked, Kaelorian eyes followed him. When he repaired tools or worked in the gardens, they murmured. When he shared meals in the open square, conversations stopped as he passed. He was not only a stranger anymore, he was caught in the middle of something far greater than himself. Strange lessons. Despite the growing attention, Serenia continued her lessons with Elias. Each morning, she came to his small crystal room carrying food and simple objects. She would point, name them in her language, and wait for Elias to repeat. Sometimes she corrected him gently. Other times she laughed softly at his mistakes. Elias found himself enjoying these moments. Learning her words was slow work, but it gave him a sense of connection. He could now say simple phrases: food, water, thank you, friend. Serenia seemed pleased with his progress, though her eyes often carried a weight he could not understand. One afternoon, she brought a long spear with a humming blade at its tip. She placed it in his hands and guided him to the training grounds. Warriors watched with interest as Serenia showed him how the weapon worked. You, hold here, she said in broken human words, pointing to the grip. Elias nodded, adjusting his stance. She moved quickly, striking at the air with speed and precision. Then she gestured for him to try. Elias mimicked her movements, clumsy at first, but improving with each attempt. The warriors murmured among themselves, surprised that the human could adapt so quickly. By the end of the session, Elias was exhausted but proud. Serenia handed him a cup of glowing water and said softly, "Strong. Learn fast," he smiled. "Teacher good." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she looked away as if hiding something. The predator attack. The calm of the colony was broken a few nights later. Strange cries echoed from the forest surrounding their crystal walls. Shadows moved among the silver trees. The guards shouted warnings as glowing-eyed predators, large beasts with armored hides, charged into the settlement. The Kaelorians rushed to defend their homes, spears humming as they struck. Elias had no weapon except a piece of broken metal he carried from his shuttle. Still, he ran toward the sound of danger. He saw a group of younglings cornered near a crystal wall, the beasts closing in. Without thinking, Elias picked up burning branches from a nearby fire pit and waved them wildly. The flames startled the creatures, who hissed and backed away. Elias shouted and threw the fire near their feet, driving them off. The younglings ran to safety, their small hands reaching out in gratitude before vanishing into the crowd. Serenia arrived moments later, her spear dripping with blue blood from one of the fallen predators. When she saw Elias standing there with nothing but a burning branch, her eyes widened. "You, brave," she said breathlessly. Elias shrugged, trying to catch his breath. "Just did what I could." The battle ended soon after. The beasts fled back into the forest, leaving behind the wounded and the shaken. The colony gathered, murmuring again, but this time not in suspicion. They spoke of the human who had faced danger without fear. From that night, Elias noticed the way the Kaelorians looked at him had changed. Where there had been doubt, now there was respect. Whispers of the council. The next day, Serenia brought Elias to the council hall. The elders were waiting, their glowing eyes serious. Elias stood quietly as they spoke in their own tongue, their words sharp and heavy. Though he could not understand everything, he caught fragments. His name, Serenia's name, and the word Mathar again. The way they looked at him left no doubt. They were discussing whether he should take part in Serenia's season. Elias felt his stomach twist. He had no place in their traditions, no right to interfere. He wanted to protest, but he had no way to explain himself in their language. Finally, Serenia stepped forward. She spoke firmly, her voice clear. The council fell silent, listening to her. When she finished, the elder nodded slowly. The meeting ended and the others left. Elias looked at her, confused. "What? They say?" he asked. Serenia hesitated, then answered in halting human words. "They think you may be bond." "Not now, think." Elias froze. The weight of her words sank into him. The council was considering him as her bondmate. He shook his head quickly. "No, not me. I don't belong." Serenia's eyes softened, but there was sadness too. "Not choice, mine only. People choose." Elias understood. It was not only about her. It was about the whole colony. A walk beneath the suns later that evening, Serenia invited Elias to walk outside the colony walls. They followed a path through the forest, silver leaves glowing under the light of the twin suns. Strange flowers opened as they passed, releasing soft melodies, as if the plants themselves could sing. For a while, they walked in silence. Finally, Serenia spoke. "Elias, why fight?" "Beast," he thought for a moment, then answered simply. "Children. They need help. No one else close. I must." She tilted her head, studying him. "Many did Kaelorian run first. You, human." "Not run," he shrugged. "I couldn't." Her gaze lingered on him, and for the first time, Elias thought he saw something more than curiosity. Perhaps respect. Perhaps something deeper. They stopped near a glowing pool, its surface reflecting the two suns. Serenia crouched and touched the water. "Season, heavy," she whispered almost to herself. Then she looked at Elias. Afraid." Elias knelt beside her, trying to find the right words. His Kaelorian vocabulary was too small, so he kept it simple. "You strong. You not alone." Her lips curved slightly, the closest thing to a smile he had ever seen on her face. The growing bond days passed. Elias worked harder than ever, trying to prove he could contribute. He repaired tools, built small devices from shuttle scraps, and even taught the Kaelorians how to use fire more effectively for defense. The people began to trust him, slowly but surely. Serenia spent more time with him than anyone else. She corrected his speech, guided his work, and sometimes simply sat with him in quiet companionship. Though their words were few, their understanding grew. Still the whispers continued. Each time Elias and Serenia were seen together, the colony murmured. Some voices carried hope, others disapproval. The question of her season was never far away. Elias felt the pressure mounting. He had not asked for this role, yet he could not escape it. Serenia was caught between duty and her own feelings, and he could see the weight it placed on her shoulders. One night, as he lay in his crystal room, Elias thought about Earth. He imagined the stars, his home, the mission he had lost. Would rescue ever come? Or was his life now bound to this world, this people, and to Serenia? A test of trust, the answer began to form sooner than he expected. A group of hunters returned to the colony carrying news. A rival Kaelorian faction had been seen nearby. These rivals were known for exploiting moments of weakness, and Serenia's season was exactly that. The colony prepared for possible conflict. Guards trained harder, the council held longer meetings, and everyone's eyes turned toward Serenia. Elias felt the tension building like a storm. That evening, Serenia visited him once more. She stood at the doorway of his room, her eyes serious. "Elias," she said softly, "soon, choice, mine, yours." He swallowed, not knowing how to answer. But in his heart, he knew this was only the beginning. The colony of Kaelor grew restless with each passing day. Serenia's season had become the center of every conversation. Elias felt the tension in every glance, every whisper, every meeting of the council. He had once been a stranger struggling to survive, but now he was caught inside their traditions that were larger than him and older than human history. Elias knew Serenia was carrying a heavy burden. She moved through the colony with her head high, but her eyes betrayed her worry. The people looked at her with expectation. She was not only a young diplomat in training, she was a symbol of the colony's strength. Her choice during this season would shape alliances, trust, and the future of her people. And Elias, a stranded human, was at the center of it all, the council's pressure. The great crystal hall glowed with golden light as the elders gathered. Elias was brought there again, standing before the council beside Serenia. He could understand more words now, enough to piece together the meaning of their sharp voices. They spoke of Mathar. They spoke of Serenia. They spoke of him. The elder with glowing eyes leaned forward, his voice deep. "Serenia's season is here. Our people must see unity. We cannot wait for others. A bond must be chosen." Another elder added, "The human is here. Strange, yes, but strong. He fights, he learns. Perhaps the season calls for something new." Others disagreed, their voices rising. "Tradition. No alien can stand in the place of a Kaelorian. If we bend now, we lose our ways." Elias stood still, heart pounding. He did not need perfect translation to know what they wanted. They wanted Serenia to choose. They wanted her to look at him, a human, and declare something that would bind them both. Serenia's voice cut through the hall. She spoke firmly, her eyes blazing with strength. She defended Elias, but she also defended herself. She did not want to be forced into a bond for politics. She wanted choice, yet the council pressed harder. They argued that her season was not only her own, it was the colony's. To delay, they said, was weakness. Elias felt anger rising inside him. He could not remain silent. Stepping forward, he spoke in broken Kaelorian words he had learned. "No, not. Me not right. Not Kaelorian. Not bond." The hall fell silent. Elders stared at him. His words were clumsy, but the meaning was clear. Serenia turned to him, surprise in her eyes. For a moment he thought she was angry, but then he saw gratitude. He had spoken what she could not. The elder's gaze softened, but his voice was stern. "Human, your words are clear, but your actions already bind you. You saved our children. You stood in battle. The people looked to you." Elias lowered his head. He had wanted to help, not to become part of their sacred traditions. Shadows of conflict. As the debate continued, new trouble approached. Scouts returned from the forest, their faces pale. They spoke of movement, shadows among the silver trees, banners of a rival colony. The council's fear deepened. The rival Kaelorians were opportunists. They attacked when others were vulnerable, and Serenia's season was exactly that. To them, capturing her would mean power, dominance, and control. The council ended the meeting quickly. Defenses were ordered, patrols doubled. Serenia was placed under constant watch, and Elias, though he was an outsider, refused to step away. He stayed near her, determined to protect her if danger came. A quiet conversation that night. When the colony was tense with watchfires and guards on every wall, Elias found Serenia sitting alone near the glowing pool outside the settlement. The water shimmered under the light of the two suns. He approached quietly. "You alone?" She looked up, her eyes reflecting the pool's light. "Alone, but not alone," she said slowly in human words. She patted the ground beside her. Elias sat down. For a while they said nothing. The silence was heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Serenia spoke in her own language, mixing words Elias could almost understand. "My people. They want me to choose. They want bond, but heart confused, duty heavy, choice not clear." Elias listened, nodding slowly. He searched for words, then said simply, "You. Choose you. Not counsel. Not me. You." Serenia studied him for a long time. Then she whispered, "But choice changes all. If I choose wrong, my people fall." Elias placed a hand on his chest. "I help. Not for bond. For friend." Her eyes softened. For the first time she reached out and touched his hand lightly, as if testing a fragile thread. The rival attack. The peace of that night did not last. Before dawn, alarms rang through the colony. Horns blared, lights flared across the walls. The rival Kaelorians had come. Shadows moved swiftly through the forest, carrying weapons of bone and crystal. Their cries echoed as they charged the walls. The colony guards rushed to meet them, spears humming. Elias grabbed a weapon, a spear Serenia had given him for training, and ran toward the chaos. He saw the enemy climb the walls, striking down defenders. He saw families rushing for safety, then he heard a cry. Serenia was surrounded, her guards fighting desperately to protect her. The enemy wanted her above all else. Without thinking, Elias charged into the fight. He used every trick he knew, throwing dirt in faces, striking with speed rather than strength, moving unpredictably. His human style of fighting confused the enemy, giving the guards precious moments. Serenia fought beside him, her spear flashing in the dim light. Together they pushed back the attackers. Blood and dust filled the air, but neither gave ground. Finally, the rival leader called a retreat. The attackers melted back into the forest, leaving the colony shaken but still standing. A dangerous decision. When the battle ended, the council gathered again. Their voices were sharp with fear. "The rivals will return," one elder warned. "They want Serenia." "They will not stop," another said. "If Serenia chooses bond, the people will unite. The rivals will think twice before striking again." All eyes turned to her. Serenia stood tall, but Elias could see her hands trembling. He stepped forward before she could speak. "No," he said firmly. His Kaelorian words were broken but strong. "Not forced. She must free choose." The elders argued, but Serenia raised her voice above them all. "Enough! I am Serenia of this colony. My season is mine. My choice is mine. If I bond, it will be by will, not fear." The hall fell silent. Her words carried power. Even the elders could not deny it. Elias felt pride in his chest. She had spoken not as a symbol, but as herself. Aftermath of battle. The days after the attack were tense. Patrols searched the forest. Families repaired homes, and the people whispered constantly about what had happened. Elias became both respected and feared. Some praised his courage. Others worried his presence had brought the rivals' interest. Serenia spent more time with him than ever. They trained together, worked together, and sometimes sat in silence together. Though they spoke little, their bond deepened, but Elias could feel the storm ahead. The rivals would not stop. The council would not stop pressing. Serenia's season was not yet over, and the final choice still hung above them like a sword. The weight of choice one evening, as the sun sank low and painted the sky in colors of fire, Serenia and Elias stood on the colony's high wall. The forest stretched before them, quiet but full of unseen eyes. Serenia spoke softly. "Soon, I must decide. People wait. Rivals wait. All wait." Elias turned to her. "What you want?" Her eyes shone with conflict. "I want freedom. I want strength. I want not just duty." Elias nodded slowly. "Then you choose heart, not fear." For a long moment they looked at each other. The world was quiet except for the whisper of the wind through silver leaves. Serenia placed her hand lightly on his arm. "Maybe. Heart already choose." Elias felt his breath catch, but before he could answer, horns sounded again in the distance. The rivals had returned. The time for choice was closer than ever. The rival horns echoed across the silver forest, their deep notes vibrating against the crystal walls of the colony. Torches flared in the distance, moving like a wave of fireflies. The rival Calorians were back, stronger than before. This time it was not a raid. It was war. Elias stood on the high wall beside Serenia. The people rushed below them, gathering weapons, securing children, preparing for what might be their final stand. Serenia's face was calm, but Elias could see the storm in her eyes. Her season pressed against her spirit, demanding instinct while her people demanded leadership. Elias felt the same pull. He had not chosen to be here, yet he could not stand aside. If the colony fell, Serenia would be taken. If Serenia was taken, her people would be broken. And if her people were broken, all hope for peace would vanish. A plan of two worlds. The council gathered quickly in the hall, their voices sharp and urgent. "We cannot withstand them," one elder said. "Their numbers are too many." "Then we must hide Serenia," another argued. "If she is safe, the rivals will not gain what they seek." "No," Serenia said firmly. "If I hide, my people will think I fear. If I run, my people will fall. I must stand." The hall grew quiet. Her words carried weight, but the danger was real. Elias stepped forward. "Listen," he said in broken Calorian, his voice steady. "Fight, not with strength only. Fight with mind. Human way." The elders turned to him confused. Serenia translated his words more clearly, explaining his idea. He spoke of traps, of surprise, of fighting not where the enemy expected. Calorians were strong and disciplined, but they thought in straight lines. Humans, Elias explained, often won by doing what no one expected. At first the council doubted, but Serenia supported him. "He saved our children. He saved me. Let us trust him again." Finally the elder gave a slow nod. "Very well, human. Show us this unpredictable way." Preparing the colony for the next hours, Elias worked alongside the Calorians. He studied the paths leading to the colony, the weak points in the walls, the open courtyards inside. With Serenia translating, he gave instructions. Dig shallow pits and cover them. Hang nets between trees. Place glowing crystals and patterns to mislead the enemy. The Calorians followed, some doubtful, others curious. Elias worked with determination, showing them how even simple tricks could change a battle. He remembered stories of ancient human wars, of smaller forces defeating larger ones through clever thinking. Serenia stayed close to him, not only translating but also commanding her people. She moved with confidence, her voice carrying strength. Elias saw the respect in the eyes of the Calorians. She was more than a symbol now. She was their leader. The first clash, when the rivals attacked at dawn, they came in waves. Their torches lit the forest like fire, their cries shaking the air. They charged the walls, expecting an easy victory. But the first line fell into hidden pits. Spears of sharpened crystal waited at the bottom. Screams rose. Others were caught in nets that dropped from above, tangled and helpless. Confusion spread through their ranks. Elias stood with Serenia at the center, directing movements. "Now fire!" he shouted, and Calorians lit rows of oil-soaked branches, forcing the enemy to split. The rivals had expected fear. Instead, they found chaos waiting for them. The battle raged all day. The defenders fought with strength, but Elias's tricks gave them an edge. Where the rivals expected open ground, they found traps. Where they expected weakness, they found resistance. By nightfall, the rivals pulled back, leaving behind their wounded. The colony cheered, but Elias knew it was not over. This was only the first test. Serenia's confession that night, after the wounded were tended and the fires burned low, Elias sat on the wall, staring at the stars. He thought of Earth, of rescue that might never come. He thought of the strange path that had brought him here, to a people who now looked to him as one of their own. Serenia joined him, her mantle glowing faintly in the starlight. She sat beside him in silence for a while. Then she spoke softly. "Elias, today you saved us again. Without you, we would fall." He shook his head. "No, your people's strong. You strong. I only help." She looked at him with eyes full of emotion. "You different. Not Calorian, not bound by our rules. You see other paths. That is why you matter. That is why." She stopped, struggling with words. Elias waited. Finally, she whispered, "That is why my heart Turns to you, the words struck him deeply. He had tried to stay apart, to respect her traditions, but he could not deny the bond between them. It was not only survival, it was trust, respect, something deeper than instinct. He answered quietly, Serenia, I did not come to take. I came only to stand with you. Her hand brushed his lightly. For a moment, neither spoke. The stars above seemed to listen, the rivals strike. The next day brought disaster. Scouts reported that the rivals had taken prisoners from nearby villages. They had captured Calorians, elders, children, families, using them as bait. The council was divided. Some argued they must defend the colony and not risk more lives. Others demanded they rescue their people. Serenia stood. We cannot abandon them. If we leave them, we lose who we are. I will go, gasps filled the hall. To risk Serenia was unthinkable. Yet no one else dared speak against her. Elias stepped forward. I go with her. The elders protested, but Serenia raised her hand. He fights with mind. He sees what we do not. If I go, he must go. The matter was decided. A small group prepared to leave under cover of night. Serenia, Elias, and a handful of trusted warriors. The rescue. The forest was dark, lit only by the pale glow of plants. The group moved silently, guided by scouts. Soon they found the rival camp. Fires burned brightly. The prisoners were tied near the center, guarded by armed warriors. Serenia's eyes hardened. We move now, she whispered, but Elias stopped her. Wait, not straight fight? Too many. He studied the camp. Then he explained his plan. Cause confusion, use fire and noise, free the prisoners while the rivals scattered. Serenia listened, then nodded. The group spread out. Elias crept close to the camp carrying flasks of oil. He poured them near the edge and lit them. Flames burst suddenly, drawing shouts. At the same time, nets hidden in the trees fell on the guards. Serenia and the warriors charged in, cutting bonds and guiding prisoners out. Chaos erupted. Rivals struck blindly, unsure where to turn. Elias used his human unpredictability, throwing stones, shouting in strange words, making them believe more fighters were hidden. In minutes, the prisoners were free, and the Calorians slipped back into the forest. A symbol of change, when they returned to the colony with the rescued villagers, the people cheered. Serenia stood tall, her mantle glowing brighter than ever. She had led, she had fought, and she had chosen her path. But when the council gathered again, all eyes turned not only to her, but also to Elias. One elder spoke. This human is no longer stranger. He has saved us 3 times. He fights as one of us. He thinks as none of us. Perhaps his presence is no accident. Perhaps it is fate. Whispers filled the hall. Serenia lifted her head. I choose. Silence fell. Everyone knew what she was about to say. She looked at Elias, her voice clear. I choose not by instinct, not by fear, not by rule. I choose by heart. I choose him, not as bond made of flesh, but as bond of trust. Human and Calorian. Together. The hall erupted in shock. Some protested, others cheered. But her words could not be taken back. She had declared a new path. Elias stood frozen. He had not expected this. Yet when Serenia looked at him, he felt no fear. He felt pride. Standing together that night as the colony settled, Elias and Serenia stood once more on the wall. The forest was quiet, but they knew the rivals would return. Serenia turned to him. No turning back. Elias nodded. Then we stand, together. Her hand touched his. For the first time, it was not a hesitant touch, but a choice, and in that moment Elias knew. He was no longer just the only human around. He was part of something larger, something that might change the fate of 2 worlds. The forest slept under a heavy silence. Mist drifted across the crystal trees, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Within the colony walls, fires still burned from the night's victory, though the warriors remained alert. Everyone knew the rivals would return. The question was not if, but when. Elias stood on the outer wall, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. His time on this alien world had been filled with struggle, fear, and survival. But now something more bound him here. Serenia, her people, their trust, their future. Behind him, soft steps approached. Serenia joined him, her mantle faintly glowing in the dawn light. She looked tired, yet her posture was steady. You do not rest, she said softly. Too quiet, Elias replied. Quiet means storm coming, she nodded. Yes, the rivals will strike again, stronger. They cannot accept defeat. He glanced at her, reading the worry in her eyes. We face it together. Her lips curved in the faintest of smiles. Together, she repeated. The rivals' prepare scouts returned by midday, bringing grim news. The rival Calorians had gathered in the valley. This time, not just one tribe, but three. Their banners rose high, their horns echoed across the land. They had united under a warlord determined to break Serenya's people. They come for me, Serenya told the council, for my choice, for daring to stand with a human. The elders muttered among themselves, fearful. Some begged her to take shelter in the deep caves beneath the colony. Others argued they should surrender her to spare the people. But Serenya rose tall, her voice calm and powerful. No, if I hide, they win. If I surrender, they own us forever. We fight not for me, but for all Calorians, our freedom to choose, our right to live. The hall fell silent. Even the most fearful elders could not argue against her. Elias stepped forward. We cannot outnumber. We cannot outmatch, but we can outthink. He began to outline a plan. A plan not of brute strength, but of cunning. Something only a human might design. The trap of fire and shadow. For the next hours, Elias worked side by side with the warriors. Serenya translated his words, her authority ensuring his instructions were followed. They carried oil and resin into the forest, weaving trails that could be lit at once. They dug false walls and weak bridges over ravines, setting them to collapse when pressed. The Calorians marveled at his ideas. This is madness, one said. Yes, Elias replied. Madness is weapon. Serenya's eyes sparkled with pride as she watched him. He was no longer the lost stranger who had stumbled into their world. He was a commander, a brother in arms, perhaps something more. The last battle begins at dusk. The rivals arrived. Thousands of them poured into the valley, their armor flashing, their horns shaking the air. The warlord himself rode at the front. His mantle dyed blood red. His voice thundered across the battlefield. Surrender, Serenya, and we spare your lives. Serenya stood on the high wall, her voice carrying clear and sharp. We surrender nothing. This is our home and we will keep it. A roar of defiance rose from her people. The warlord gave the signal. The rivals surged forward. Elias raised his hand. Wait, he whispered, eyes locked on the advancing wave. He waited until they reached the first marked line. Then he shouted, now. Flames leapt into the air as the oil trails ignited. Walls of fire split the rival army into scattered groups. Confusion erupted. Some turned back, others pressed forward blindly. The defenders rained arrows and crystal spears from above. Nets dropped from trees, stones rolled down slopes, pits swallowed entire lines. The battlefield became a nightmare of fire and shadow. Yet still, the rivals pressed on, face to face with the warlord amid the chaos. The warlord broke through the flames with his strongest fighters, heading straight for the colony gate. His eyes locked on Serenya. She is mine, he roared. Elias rushed to her side. Stay back, he urged. No, Serenya said, her voice firm. This is my fight. The gate shuddered as the warlord's warriors rammed against it. The wood cracked. With a final crash, the gate burst open. The warlord strode inside, towering above the defenders. Elias stepped forward, weapon in hand. He knew he could not match the warlord's strength, but he would not let Serenya stand alone. The clash was brutal. The warlord's strikes were heavy, each blow forcing Elias back. But Elias used speed and unpredictability, dodging where no Calorian would, striking at angles no one expected. Serenya joined him, her blade flashing. Together they forced the warlord to fight two enemies who moved as one. Finally, as the warlord raised his weapon for a killing strike, Elias shouted, Now! Serenya spun, driving her blade into the weak joint of the warlord's armor. The great warrior staggered, fell to his knees, and collapsed. A stunned silence spread through the battlefield. Their leader was down. Victory at a price. With the warlord's fall, the rivals faltered. Some fled, others dropped their weapons. The united tribes broke apart in fear and confusion. By dawn, the valley was empty except for the wounded and the fallen. The colony had survived. The people cheered Serenya and Elias, their voices echoing like thunder. But even in victory there was sorrow. Many Calorians had given their lives. Families wept. Warriors bowed their heads in mourning. Serenya stood among them, her mantle dimmed by grief yet shining with resolve. We have paid a price, she told her people. But it was not for nothing. Today we proved we are not slaves to fear. nor prisoners of old rules. We are free. Serenya's choice that evening. As the fires burned low, the council gathered one last time. The elders bowed to Serenya. You have led us through trial and war. You are no longer only a daughter of the Kaelorians. You are our matriarch. Serenya accepted, but she did not smile. Her eyes searched the hall until they found Elias. She walked to him and took his hand. Gasps rose from the crowd. She raised their joined hands high. This human fought beside us. He saved us not once but many times. His ways are strange, but his heart is true. I chose him before, and I choose him now, not by season, not by instinct, but by will. Let our bond be the symbol of a new age. Human and Kaelorian together. At first, silence filled the hall. Then slowly, voices rose in support. Not all approved, but none could deny what Elias had done. The people accepted her choice. A new dawn days passed. The rivals did not return. The valley grew quiet once more. The wounded healed, the walls were rebuilt, and the people began to hope again. Elias walked through the colony with Serenya at his side. Children laughed when they saw him. Warriors greeted him as one of their own. He was no longer the outsider. He was family. One morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky, Serenya and Elias stood together on the wall where it had all begun. The forest shimmered in the glow, alive and peaceful. Serenya turned to him. My season has ended, she said softly. But something new has begun. Elias smiled faintly. Yes, a new season. For you, for me, for all of us. She reached for his hand. He took it without hesitation, and together, they looked toward the rising sun. Two souls from different worlds, bound not by instinct, but by choice. Epilogue stories of their stand spread across Kaelorian lands. Tribes spoke of the human who fought like no other, and the matriarch who chose him over all. For some it was a tale of scandal. For others it was a tale of hope. But for Serenya and Elias it was simply their truth. They had survived the storm. They had built trust where none thought possible. And in their bond, fragile yet unbreakable, humanity and Kaelorian kind found a path toward a future neither could imagine alone.